Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Amanda Rose and my channel is mostly about teaching, lifestyle, and of course a little bit of clothing and cameos from my dog. Anyways, in today's video, it's been long awaited since I've done a teacher related video and I am back with some of that content for you all. So today, what I want to focus on is my most successful classroom management strategies that have also been principal approved. These are things that I have been complimented on, that I have had other teachers come in and observe my practice. And so I thought, I think it's about time that I can share these with you as well so that you can hopefully benefit from the things that I'm doing in my classroom. I do want to say that I practice these things in a middle school classroom. Some of them I think are going to be childish and very irrelevant for high school classes. So I just want to throw that out there. This is predominantly for middle school, and that's pretty much it. So let's get into this video of my most successful classroom management strategies. Strategy number one, timers. I use timers all of the time throughout my day. Even in my personal life, if you saw my most recent video, I use timers even for cleaning. I just always feel like there's so much to do and a timer just helps me stay on track. And so I brought that strategy from my own personal life into my classroom. I don't know if you have a smart board or a Promethean board. For the most part, I think those are pretty standard in a lot of classrooms, but all of those already come in with a built-in timer. I used to use that when I was teaching at my old school with a smart board. And again, our Promethean board, our active our active panel also has a timer. I set timers for everything and I make it very clear. Hi everyone, you have 2 minutes for this turn and talk. Your time starts now, and I'll set a timer. You have 12 minutes to get this assignment done. Your time starts now. The reason why I like to use timers is because one, it helps me stay on task, especially when there's so many different things that you want to do within the classroom, but also it helps the students stay on task. In middle school, I find that self-accountability, self-pacing is something that they are learning, right? It's something that most adults still don't have a handle on. So how much more 11 and 12-year-olds? So I like having the timer visible. I know some teachers use a timer on their phone, but it's not the same because the timer is just for you when it's on your phone. Having something visual up on the board where students can actually see their time. I don't use it as a punitive thing. I don't use it as a, come on, you should have done this in 12 minutes. No, it's very much like I'll pause the time and say, hey everyone, you have about 6 minutes left. Where are you in your pacing, right? Are you moving too slow? Are you moving too fast? What are some things that you need to adjust because you have 6 minutes to finish this? So I like pausing my timer oftentimes and then making little comments about what I witnessed. Okay, at this point in time, you should be on question 5. And then some students will be like, oh my God, we're only on question 3. So it's not necessarily to rush students, but again, I make it very clear in the classroom, hey, if I've given you 20 minutes to do this, it's because it takes 20 minutes. I don't do fake timers. I don't do things to kind of force them to rush. I really do set a time where I think it is possible to complete the task in the time that I have given. And of course, that timer fluctuates. Certain classes may take a little longer for certain assignments, so I'll give them more time. Some classes can get things done in a faster pace, so I'll give them less time. You obviously will modify it based on your classroom and based on your students. But what I've noticed is I've even started to hear certain students say things like, come on guys, we only have 5 minutes. So that tells me that they are aware and that they are starting to manage their own time and behavior. So again, I may pause the timer and say things like, are you distracted right now? You only have 5 minutes left, but have you been focusing the entire time on your assignment? Or are you distracted by your phone? Did you go to the bathroom and you were out for way too long? So I like to use the timer to also bring attention to them and make them aware of maybe certain habits and behaviors that are not helping them be successful in the classroom at that moment. Strategy number 2 is routines. I speak about this all the time, but these are just things that I do for myself on a personal level, and I just integrate them into the classroom. I'm a routine person. I like to know what to expect. I like to know what comes first, second, third, and fourth. And I do find that when students are aware of the classroom routine, it helps with management as well. If you're constantly changing things around, students are confused. They don't know what to do next. And you're wasting so much time explaining things or being long-winded, trying to get students back on track. So for example, we always start the day with a do now, a warm up, whatever you want to call it, something that takes 2 to 3 minutes max for students to start. When I first implement this with my middle schoolers, I always have just the do now on the board, nothing else, nothing distracting, my do now, my timer, and then I'll always, once they settle in, I'll say things like the do now is the first thing you do when you come into the room. It's the first thing that you're expected to complete. And then I will also catch them at the door. So this was in the beginning of the school year, but if you're finding that you're having a hard time with routine and management and that your classroom just feels very disorganized, it's something that I would get them at the door and say, hey, don't forget to take out your laptop and start your do now. Don't forget to take out your laptop and start your do now. Like the minute I meet them at the door, I'm already telling them what the expectation is, right? I do not start my timer, because these two go hand in hand, until most of the class is in the room. Once that late bell goes off, I start my timer. If students come in late, that's on them. But for the most part, the timer does not start until the late bell rings. But again, having routine in the classroom is really important. Students know what to expect. After the do now, I do a little blurb about what they're going to be learning about today. Then we have our learning objective that I always post for them, and I always ask for a volunteer to read the learning objective. So my students could probably run my classroom if I were never there. They know do nows first, we read the learning objective, we do our little mini lesson, we start our assignment, there's always a turn and talk implemented, and then our assignment where we work in pairs or in groups to complete our task. They know exactly the routine. If I told them run the classroom, I am 98% sure that about 4 out of my 5 classes would be able to run themselves. So routines are really, really important. Also, another routine that I like to implement is students calling on each other. Although that may sound like something else rather than a routine, but it is. So for example, it's not necessarily popcorn, because sometimes popcorn, students pick on people who don't even want to participate. It's students who have their hands up and want to participate. So I'll start it off by saying, okay, so we're going to have Janice start with the do now, and then Janice, from there, you call on somebody else. So as Janice is sharing her response to the do now, and then calling somebody else and calling somebody else, I'm using that time to write their responses on the board. I love doing this because one, it runs itself. As I said, Janice is calling on this person's calling on that person, and all I have to do is listen to what they're saying, and I'm writing the most common responses on the board. So again, it runs itself. They're not waiting for you to call on the next person. There's no interruption. If you don't say something, then the class doesn't continue. It just runs itself. And then if there are a lot of students with their hands up, I'll say, okay, Jennifer, call on the last person, make it count. And that's it. They know, okay, no one else is going to share out for the do now. I do that for classroom responses, anything at all where it's a response where multiple answers can be correct and multiple things can be shared. I have students call on each other. The reason why that's the most important is because, as I said, then I can write their responses on the board, and it's an easy way to summarize. Wow, let's take a look at everything that you all shared for the do now. You're absolutely right. During the Neolithic Revolution, one of the most important characteristics were that humans became sedentary. As well as being sedentary, you also mentioned that they learned how to domesticate animals. And it's a nice way to summarize the do now responses. So again, that's something that I highly recommend. Third strategies are visual and auditory cues. Now, this is the most important thing to making sure that your classroom, in my opinion, run smoothly. So for example, if we're going back and forth between a workbook, our notebooks, or a laptop, I like to put an image of what they need on their tables that day. So this is very easy because as they come in, once they see the do now, they also see those images. Oh, we only need our laptops today. Oh, we need our laptops and our notebooks today. So it just knows them how to get ready and prepare for the classroom. The second way I like to use cues is fingers. So one of the most annoying things is when a student raises their hand and you think they're going to participate and add to the discussion and they're like, can I go to the bathroom? And I tell the students this, it is a killer to a teacher's soul when you're so into the discussion and you see a hand up from a student who probably doesn't normally participate and then they ask to go to the bathroom. So I just have finger signals that are very simple to let me know what they want. 2 fingers means bathroom, 1 finger means water, hand up, all 5 means I want to participate. This is really easy. So if you're in the middle of a discussion or a mini lesson and you see a student like this, just make eye contact with them and I just nod. I don't even have to say anything. I make eye contact with them and I nod. That way I know who wants to go to the bathroom. Obviously have a pass system so that if another student wants to go out, you can just look, and if the pass is missing, you know someone's out already and you'll let them know somebody's out. That's it. But having this system, something so simple, bathroom, water, participation, will change your classroom. Another auditory cue that I do in my classroom is when I want to get all students' attention, I clap 3 times. When I clap 3 times, they clap 3 times, and then that's when they know it's time to be silent. Sometimes I have to clap 3 times twice, but either way, it ends up working, and it's so much better than straining your voice, than trying to say, everyone, I need your attention, be quiet. It just adds to the noise and the chaos. The 3 hand claps, I can clap as loud as I want, it doesn't matter. And sometimes you'll see students like waiting for it, like they know I'm about to clap, so you see them like ready to clap as well. So it's really cute, but that's something that I think is so helpful. If you don't like the idea of clapping, maybe getting a bell or a buzzer, a chime, but something that you can use without having to use your voice that can get your students' attention. And that again, you got to protect your voice, man. You realize so quickly that you can lose your voice, you strain your voice, you're talking too much. And so you really want to minimize ways that you don't put stress on your voice by using sounds as cues for what you want students to do in the classroom. Strategy number 4, creating student jobs. This is actually something that I have just started doing. I have never had student jobs before, and I find that middle schoolers eat this stuff up. They really like it. So this is my first year implementing it. I am still checking and seeing how it's working, but for the most part, I currently have teacher job or student jobs for teacher's assistant, timekeeper, and attendant. Those are the 3 things that I think I can handle right now, where I can assign them every month. I have students actually apply. I created a Google form. I explained to them the role of each job, that the position will change monthly, and they also had to explain why they thought they would be a good person for the task. So teacher's assistant is the most challenging of the jobs, and so if you are going to implement it, make sure that it's a student that you know will be successful at it, because the first and most important thing for me is I don't want students to feel embarrassed. So you want to call on a student that you know has already shown some type of leadership qualities within the classroom, that can accept the challenge and perform well. And it is something that you want to coach them on, which is what I'm doing right now with my 4 teachers assistants. Their job is this: they start the do now. So instead of me reading the do now and calling on the first student and allowing that whole process to happen that I explained earlier, my teacher's assistant will get up, they'll come to the front of the room. All right, everyone, we're going to start our do now. They'll read it, they'll read the question, and then they'll call on the first person. And then that's it. They get to take a seat, and then your do now students calling on each other and you recapping works the same way that it would normally work. Ideally, having them also summarize everything that they heard from their classmates during the do now, that would be like goals. That's something that I would definitely love to work towards, so that the entire do now portion is run by students. That would be amazing. But for right now, I am just scaffolding it because it's the first time they're doing it and I'm doing it. They're reading it, they're calling on the first student, and they're really just setting the tone that class has officially started. Timekeeper is easy. As I mentioned, I do timers, so the timekeeper is responsible for actually setting the timer up on the board. And then lastly, an attendance person. We all know that our attendance has to go to the main office, so I have someone that is responsible that can take my attendance down to the main office. My last strategy, which is a bit ambiguous, is creating a warm and inviting classroom environment. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't be strict and stern, but when I say a warm and inviting classroom, again, things like hi, good morning, and having the students say good morning back to you, and explaining why a greeting is important, explaining why saying goodbye, have a good day, have a good weekend is important. I think that creating a culture where students respect each other and respect you as the teacher and know that when they walk in the room that they're seen, that they're heard. If you can create a warm and inviting classroom, whether it's asking them how their weekend was, oh, you're in a club, what are some of the clubs you're involved in? Maybe cracking a joke here and there. Sometimes your students crack jokes. If it's not inappropriate, laugh at the joke and you can say, that was actually really funny. But creating a warm and inviting classroom. Sometimes I'll use playful sarcasm. If my students are supposed to be working on something and it's a discussion and they're quiet, it's like, wow, please stop talking. I can't even focus. It's so loud over here. And just like being playful with them, so it's like, okay, I can actually be myself as a teacher. Also letting them know that you're not just mean all the time, right? I think that if you can create a warm and inviting classroom where students feel comfortable and safe, then all of these other things will just fall in line. They'll want to be a part of the routines. They'll want to listen. They'll want to do the hand signals. They'll want to follow the timers because you've already built a culture in your classroom where they know they come first. They are the most important people in the classroom, and you as a teacher, you're just guiding them into the learning process. But I would say that tip, although last, is probably the most important thing so that everything else follows in your classroom. Again, repetition is vital. Repeating these things with them over and over, reminding them what the expectations are. This is not something that I roll out one time and expect for them to remember it. It is a constant thing that I'm always implementing, always pausing and reminding them of. And it's November. Hopefully by December, we won't have to do any of that. But I do think that when it comes to routine and management, you need to know what works for you as a teacher. You need to repeat it as much as possible so that students are constantly aware, and having some type of like actual present chart or something with the expectations, with the cues, etc., so that students, it's always just visible. It's always there in the forefront so that they know what to expect and that they're reminded. So I hope that you found these classroom management strategies helpful. They are the 5 things that have been working for me like a charm this year with my middle schoolers. And I hope that if you are struggling with classroom management, that you will implement some of these tips and that they will be helpful. As always, if there are things that you are doing in your classroom that you know works, please put that down in the comments below. I always want this channel to be a place where we can learn from each other. I am not the only expert. We are all experts in our craft. And so please share in the comments anything that is working in your classroom that we can all benefit from. I'll see you all in the next video.